My name is Sharnnia Artis, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Access and Inclusion in the Samueli School of Engineering at the University of California, Irvine. For this session, I'm going to talk about opportunities to fund graduate school. There are many ways to pay for graduate school, especially in the science and engineering fields. And here's a list of the different opportunities that we will talk about today. Before we jump into these funding opportunities, I want to start with Fellowship 101. So the definition of fellowship is funding to pay for tuition, fees, and living expenses for graduate school. The living expenses for graduate school is sometimes just called stipends. So if you see stipends, you are supposed to use your stipend to pay for your living expenses, such as your room and board if you stay on campus, or if you rent an apartment, your utilities, if you have a car note, or your insurance. All of those things count as far as your living expenses for graduate school. There are different types of fellowships. You have portable or external fellowships, and these are fellowships that are awarded by organizations and that can typically be used at the university or institution of your choice. The other type of fellowship is the institutional or internal fellowships, and these are typically awarded by the university or department at the institution that you'll attend, and you can't take that to any school, so you have to use that fellowship at that university where you plan to conduct your research or complete your degree. Fellowships oftentimes have different qualifications, or there are different types that you can apply for or be awarded. The merit fellowship is typically based off of your academic record or your grade point average or your achievements in your academics as an undergraduate or graduate student. Academic need is if you need funding to complete your degree, there's typically a fellowship that's available for you. Some fellowships have different citizenship requirements. Some fellowships have specific disciplines that they will only support. And then there are also fellowships for different degrees. So there are fellowships for students that are pursuing master's degrees. There are also fellowships for students pursuing doctorate or Ph.D s. There are many more fellowships out there for students that are pursuing their doctoral degrees. And this is just a link with some resources that I found online. It has lots of different information about fellowships. I strongly encourage you to go to that link to look up more information about fellowships. And so now I want to talk about the different types of fellowships. And I'm going to talk about them in the order of importance to, I think it should be the order of importance to a graduate student, because with the graduate fellowships, this is funding that you receive from an external organization that you can take to different universities, but also this is the type of research that gives you academic freedom with the type of research that you want to do. You are not as committed to a specific research that's being funded by your faculty advisor or a research project that's taking place in the lab that you're working in. So it gives you some freedom to work on a topic that's closely related to your faculty advisor, but something that you're extremely interested in as well. So I always say that you always want to try to have your own funding, and graduate fellowships provide you the opportunity to have your own funding. I'm going to just highlight a few different programs that provide funding to give you examples of graduate fellowships out there, but there are lots of them. You have to do research to find these fellowships, and I strongly encourage you to do your research at least 6 months to a year in advance, because these applications may sometimes take a couple weeks or months to prepare if you want to be competitive. So the first fellowship that I want to share is the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, also called NSF-GRFP. This fellowship is awarded for up to 3 years, and it covers your tuition, fees, and it provides you a $34,000 stipend each year. The deadline for the NSF-GRFP is typically in late October or early November, and then you would receive the award in April for the following academic year. There's also another fellowship, the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowships, and these are fellowships for research projects that are tied to the Department of Defense. And again, this one is extremely competitive. It pays for your tuition fee, stipend, as well as medical insurance for up to 3 years. And the deadline for this one is in December. There are a couple other that I want to share. The GEM Fellowship Program, it provides tuition fees and a $16,000 stipend for up to 5 years. And then the Ford Foundation Pre-Doctoral Fellowship. This one is stipend only, but it's $24,000 a year for up to 3 years, and the deadline is in November. And I have another link here that will give you, it will share with you other graduate fellowships that are available. But this is just an example, 4 examples of external fellowships where you would apply for these fellowships. Each of the programs have different requirements and eligibility criteria, but you would apply for each of them independently. You typically can apply for as many fellowships as you want to apply for, and sometimes you can receive more than one fellowship at the institution that you decide to go to. But you have to check with that university because every institution is different with regard to how many external fellowships and what type of external fellowships they allow you to keep at their institution. So the next fellowship that I want to talk about, so this is, I would say, my second, I would recommend this as your second choice if you don't have a graduate fellowship, is the Graduate Research Assistantship. And this is a institutional or internal fellowship because it is awarded by the university or department, program, or faculty member that you work with at that institution. And Graduate Research Assistantship, also known as GRA at some institutions, provides you funding to conduct research. And this funding typically pays for your tuition and living expenses for graduate schools. For the GRA, there are different types. You can be a full-time GRA, and that's 49% or up to 20 hours during the academic year. And then part-time. Part-time is 10 to 15 hours. And during the summer, that time can change because you won't be taking classes or have other commitments as a graduate student. Some other factors that I would like to share with you about the GRA is that funding varies for fees. There's some universities that may pay for fees, and there are other universities that may not. Some GRAs offer summer support, some do not, and then some may include health insurance and others may not. So this is a part that varies by university, so it's really important for you to ask those type of questions when you go visit the programs to get that information before making a decision. The second institutional internal program or fellowship opportunity that I would like to share is the Graduate Teaching Assistantship. And so I would rank this one as your third choice. So your first one, you want to strive for the graduate fellowships. The second one is the GRA or the Graduate Research Assistantship, because as a doctoral student, your priority is to do research. The third one I would say is your teaching assistantship. For those of you that love to teach and may want to consider a teaching institution as a once you graduate with your Ph.D., the graduate teaching assistantship may be a higher priority for you or just as important as a GRA. But typically with the GTA, you have to teach, excuse me, let me go back. With the graduate teaching assistantship, you are provided funding to be a teaching assistant for an undergraduate or graduate course. So you may remember when you were an undergraduate student or in one of your previous classes where you had a phenomenal GTA or teaching assistant. That would be you as a graduate student. So you would get paid to go to graduate school by being a GTA. So that's one way of being paid. And so this funding typically pays for your tuition as well as your living expenses. So you would get a stipend for your living expenses for graduate school. The reason why I rank this one as third for the type of fellowship that you would like to have is because in addition to teaching, you also have to still do your research because that is what's needed to graduate with your doctoral degree. And so you won't be able to spend 100% of your time on your research if you have a graduate teaching assistantship. But that's okay because you probably want to develop your teaching skills as well so that if you decide to be a faculty member, you're not only a good researcher, but you're also a good teacher in the classroom. With the GTAs, very similar to the graduate research assistantships, it could be full-time or part-time. And then funding varies for the fees and the health insurance. And oftentimes support is only available if you can be a TA for a course. So if there are no summer courses offered, there's typically not an opportunity for you to be a graduate teaching assistant. So the third graduate assistantship that I would like to share for the institutional internal fellowship is the GA. So the graduate assistantship is typically funding provided for you to serve in a support role at a university while you complete your graduate education. And so this assistantship is outside of research or teaching. So oftentimes there are offices on campus that have GAs run different types of programs. I know that in my office, I have a graduate assistant who runs our outreach programs. This is in addition to the research that she conducts as a graduate student. So a lot of times students don't know about these graduate assistantships, but they're out there just in case you need funding to help you fund graduate school outside of the research. And sometimes the graduate assistantships have nothing to do with your research, but you still qualify for it because you are a graduate student. And it may be something that you're interested in, or maybe it's a hobby that you have that ties to a position that's available out there for you. With the graduate assistantship, funding varies. It could cover your tuition. It could cover stipend only for the living expenses. Again, this GA could be full-time or part-time, very similar to the GRA or graduate research assistantship, or the GTA, the graduate teaching assistantship. And then you also, the funding for fees and summer support and health insurance varies based on different institutions as well. So those were some examples of internal or institutional fellowships. I want to go back to external funding opportunities or other portable opportunities. We talked about the different fellowships that you can apply for, but then there's a couple other options. One is employer assistance. You can work for a company and they will pay for you to go to graduate school. And so there are different options. Sometimes they'll pay all of your tuition and fees. Sometimes they will pay a percentage of your tuition and fees. So if an employer pays for you to go to graduate school, they may also ask for you to commit to service or additional years of service with that company or organization in return for paying for your tuition and fees. So that's something you have to consider with the employer assistance program. There are some employers out there that will allow you to take off time from work to pursue graduate school, and they'll help pay for it. But there are others that will pay for it, but you have to work full-time and go to school part-time. So you just have to do your research and see what's out there and see what works best for your situation. The last option that I want to share, and this is one that it's last because I don't recommend it if you don't have to, is our loans. We have a federal aid program very similar to taking out loans for your undergraduate degree. If you had to take out loans, you can apply for loans for graduate school. There's the federal Perkins as well as the Stafford loans. The federal Perkins have a lower interest rate than the Stafford loans, but those are options out there for you if you need them. And here's a link with some resources that give you more information about student loans. Okay, so I want to recap here. I talked about different funding opportunities, and this list from 1 through 6 is how I would rank the type of fellowship or funding opportunities you should pursue. The graduate fellowships are the external or portable fellowships that you apply for. They're extremely competitive. They typically go to the top students. I strongly encourage you to apply for them because you never know if you will be selected. And then funding opportunities 2, 3, and 4, those are internal or institutional fellowships that are offered at the university that you'll attend. So you have your graduate research assistantship where it's focused on research, the graduate teaching assistantship, which is focused on teaching, and then the graduate assistantship, the GA, which is some type of support role on campus for graduate students, which could be tied to your discipline or outside of your discipline or even outside of the department that you're in. And then the last two, employer assistance and loans, both of those are the external funding options where one, the company will pay for you to pursue your graduate degree, and you may have to commit to years of service to pay back the company for support, or loans, which I strongly recommend you to look for other options, just because a lot of students have to take out loans for undergraduate degrees, and so you don't want to add more loans to your graduate education if you don't have to. So this is a list of funding opportunities. All of them are options for you so that you can make graduate school affordable. Thank you.